Hello Megalithomaniacs, how you all doing? Here we are in the center of Jerusalem, the holy city of Canaan, or Israel as it's now called. Now, the reason I'm fascinated by this is because of what's inside the Dome of the Rock. It's the rock itself, because this is a major megalithic slab. It's a huge slab. It's, you know, something like over 40 feet wide, and it's got all these beautiful intricate carvings on it as well. And it reminds me of what we see at Karahan Tepe, at Sayburch, even in Peru, the way that all the steps and niches and everything else have been carved into it. And this is Mount Moriah. This is like the sacred mountain of the whole area, which is huge history to it, you know, with the Muslims, with the Arabs, with the Jews, with the Christians and everything else. And then Solomon's temple is the main, what's left here, the foundations of this anyway. And so it's just a remarkable place. But this stone reminds me of Natufian style carving, or what we find at Karahan Tepe or Göbekli Tepe. So is there a direct connection between what the most sacred stone of all these religions are and what we find now at Karahan Tepe and Göbekli Tepe? This is supposed to be where Abraham ascended to heaven. It's supposed to be where the Ark of the Covenant was placed. But also we've got to remember what was underneath here, where we find stones weighing up to 570 tons in the style of Baalbek in Lebanon. So there's lots of connections here, but we can't go in there. Only Muslims are allowed in there. No foreigners at all, apparently. But I'll show you some images because it's an absolutely fascinating sight. So this is the Western Wall in the heart of Jerusalem, the sacred area of Judaism in this part of the world. And this is seriously megalithic. It's 488 meters long, at least 1,300 feet. And it goes deep under the ground as well as above ground here. Much of it has been reconstructed, but even so, even what you can see here, we're looking at between 3 and 8 to 9 tons per block, going something like 100 or more feet high. So this is a remarkable construction in its own right. But when we go under the ground into the tunnels, we're going to see a whole other dimension to megalithic blocks going over 500 tons. But yeah, it's amazing to be able to go up to the wall and touch it, say a little personal prayer and experience this holy place here in Jerusalem. So we're here at Temple Mount in Jerusalem. We've come down to a lower level. This is the official kind of archaeological park, the Davidson Center, due to the people who excavated it. And we're going to want to look around it because you've got the Western Wall kind of going all the way along there for nearly 500 meters, or 14 or 1500 feet. And there's other stones down this way which are supposed to be really large. We're looking for big megaliths. And we've got the whole kind of complex of streets and walls all the way back to the time of Solomon, so 19 BC in this area. So let's get in and have a look around, see what we can see. So we're just going to some of the lowest levels here of Temple Mount. Wow, this is pretty cool. So we might get to see some gigantic stones. This is part of the Western Wall. This is literally it. And look at that stone there. Oh my God. Look at that one there, just going across. That is absolutely gigantic. So whether that's reconstructed, and then the ones up there that look really rough hewn. Wow. So this is very interesting. So this is where we are now, is like the remains of Jerusalem's main street running the length of the Western Wall. And it's at least 1 kilometre, paved with flagstones and edged with curbstones, with large drainage areas beneath it as well. But I'm just thinking, this is like seriously megalithic. So this is probably from before the time of Solomon. Then you have these gigantic gates here. You can get a sense of scale with JJ there just walking by. That is absolutely incredible. So this is seriously megalithic, and we haven't even been under the ground yet. And these curbstones, almost like what you see on the Giza Plateau. And these are just some of the fallen stones from the whole area, probably original stones from the Western Wall. And these are multi-ton blocks. This is pretty massive all round. And there's a lot of reconstruction going on here at the minute, but look at these though. And then some of the ones high up in the Western Wall are some of the originals, extremely big. It's very similar to Baalbek. It's got a very similar vibe. And we're going to see stones almost as big as Baalbek when we go underground into the tunnels along the whole edge of the Western Wall. So here we have an interesting section. We've got lots of areas just carved out of the bedrock here. This is really interesting. So this is almost like what you see with the dome, the rock in the Dome of the Rock, or even at Karahan Tepe. And there's even caves here, look, carved out. Look at this, it's like hypogeums. How old are these? Could these even go back to Natufian times? You know, going back over 10,000 years. This is remarkable. This is supposed to be a rock-cut Jewish ritual bath, or a mikveh, from the Second Temple period, which is roughly the 1st century BC to the 1st century AD. And this is where you go down to kind of be bathed. It's pretty interesting, but look, it's all cut out of solid bedrock. We have all these niches. So this is the same kind of rock, obviously, Dome of the Rock, the rock in the Dome of the Rock. And you've got these niches here with steps cut out of the solid bedrock. Now these could be much, much older. You've got water channels there. This could be any age, because this is the bedrock. This is the lowest level. It's pretty interesting. All the way down there as well. But this is very interesting. Look at this. And you've got these giant lintels going across these stones here. You've got very large stones up in parts, quite high up, parts of the Western Wall there. So this is very interesting. Look at this. So this is officially a kind of Jewish sacred well. Still got water in it here. But because it's in the bedrock, this is much like the rock in the Dome of the Rock. And it's also, this is the lowest level in this particular area. So this could well be, not just an acoustic chamber, you can hear the acoustics here, but a very, very ancient, possibly Natufian site. Now, I believe the great carved rock inside the Dome of the Rock, the sacred altar where Muhammad was said to have ascended to heaven, I believe that is actually a Natufian structure, and everything was built around it. And must remember, the Natufians were the people who may have been involved, certainly a group of them, possibly, involved in Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, because we see the same kind of hypogeum carvings there. It may have even developed in Anatolia first and then spread down this way. Fascinating. But yeah, you can just see here all these carvings. You've still got water in it down here. The amazing kind of steps carved out of the bedrock. And it makes you wonder just how much of this is super ancient, and not just from the period of Solomon, sort of 100 BC to 100 AD. Let's go and look at some more examples. So all around here you have these sort of rock cut areas going deep into the ground. You have wells that have now been covered over with metal grates. Obviously they've been carving out the bedrock here, but also we have these giant megaliths, these kind of doorways, these lintels. And also when we look more closely at the Western Wall, even at the higher levels, they're extremely large stones. So many aspects to this site that you don't really hear about. You just hear about the Wailing Wall, you just hear about certain parts, that part of the kind of religion. But actually, I think there's a super ancient aspect here. We have another section here, again, appears to be carved out of solid bedrock with steps, water channels. Very interesting. Where JJ's standing, there's more water channels. And if we go over here, you can see even more. Go down here first. This is carved out of bedrock. Look at this, all this. And then this whole area here, like this bathtub almost. Look at that, it's carved out of the bedrock. It's very, very interesting. It just continues all the way up there to where we just were inside the so-called Jewish bath. We appear to have a megalithic throne, just like much like the throne of Poseidon in Crete, which we visited. Obviously we got some photos of us sitting in it, but is this an actual seat, or is this just a coincidental shape that we find here right beneath the great western wall of Jerusalem? So we have another niche cut out of the bedrock here, and then behind it we have the megalithic throne, which actually faces exactly south because it's parallel with the western wall here. So it's like a southern orientation, so maybe have some astronomical significance. So this is what is called the trumpeter's stone. Now this is a replica, but it would have been this size. There's actually more of it all along here. That would have sat at the southwestern corner of the main temple here, right at the top, where a gentleman would trumpet and blow the horn to mark the Sabbath. And apparently it fell down, or it was knocked down, and it landed here. You can see the beautiful shaping on this. You've even got a later Hebrew inscription there. So this would have sat at the very corner, very top of the actual, right up there, 130 feet high or more. And it would have been much bigger than this. This is just a kind of replica they placed here, but it's significant because we have the walls of Jericho and the story there of trumpets being associated with the moving of stones and the kind of levitation of them almost. So it could be a memory of this. So this gives a pretty good example of just one of the stones here on the southwest corner of the western wall. And you can see it starts here, and I'll walk down to the other end. Now this is nothing compared to what we're going to see under the ground with the 570 ton stone, but this shows you that they were moving multi-ton stones at this very early period, at least 100 BC, although I think there's much older because of the Natufian style kind of hypogeum carvings we've already seen here. But it goes from here all the way along here. And this is where it ends. So you can see this is probably 30 feet long, and we know that the main stone under the ground is at least 46 feet long. So this, if it's the same kind of weight, same kind of stone, this is probably in excess of 80 or 90 tons. So you can just see it here, going along here. Wow. So that just gives you an example. These look very much like what you find at Baalbek and Byblos in the Lebanon. And if you go higher and higher up there, you can just see similar sized stones, even slightly longer, some of them. There's one up there, really badly worn, some of them. But we'll keep looking around this southern part of the site. So this is the southern wall of Temple Mount, Solomon's Temple. So it's fascinating to be here in Jerusalem, the holiest place on earth apparently, with all these religions focused on this one area. And I'm just blown away by the megalithic nature of the site here. And we haven't even seen the biggest stone yet. But even so, we're seeing stones which would be impressive if they were at Stonehenge. They'd be impressive if they were in the Great Pyramid, because the largest stone in the Great Pyramid is 70 tons, a piece of granite, above the main King's Chamber, the relieving, below the relieving chamber. So we're seeing ones here at least as big as that already. So let's keep looking around, see what we can see. But when we get underground, that's where it gets seriously megalithic. So you've got the shaping on the stone here. Like you get a biblos, you get some elements of Baalbek, like this as well. So this is a very, very large stone, which begins here, goes all the way along here, all the way up to this point here. So this again just shows you the magnitude of just some of the blocks here in Temple Mount, or Solomon's Temple technically. Or is it from an earlier structure that was here, like a platform like we find at Baalbek? So this is the southern gate, the Huldar gate, it's a triple gate. So it's like a triptych temple, And just next to it, we have the giant stone we were just looking at. So they say it's from the Second Temple period. Of course, everything could be a bit older than what we're told. So I hope you've enjoyed our exploration of Temple Mount, Solomon's Temple, the Western Wall. We're going to continue further along these routes. There's a lot more to see here. It's seriously megalithic Jerusalem. People don't realise this, but it's got this Baalbek and Byblos kind of flavour to it. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time, Megalithomaniacs.